Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to Let's Draw. I'm your host, BJ Dell, and in today's new episode, we're going to talk about inking with Procreate using this cool cartoon karate hippo that we learned how to draw in episode 1 of the series. Today's video, I'm going to talk about how to set up your canvases for inking, what brushes I use, some of the techniques that I use, and the arm movements to get really cool dynamic lines, and the importance of line weight. So, if you want to learn all about that and more, keep watching. All right, guys, let's go ahead and jump into the video. Today, as always, I'm using the iPad Pro. This is a Gen 4 2020 model. Got the Apple Gen 2 pencil. The app is Procreate, and the brush that I'm using today is the standard inker. This is part of my cartooning brush set, which is available on Gumroad, and I will link that in the description below if you guys want to check it out. Today's video, we're just going to talk about inking this design, how to ink in Procreate using this one. This I did in part 1 of this video series. Talked about how to draw some really cool dynamic action poses using some basic shapes and came up with this cartoon hippo. If you guys didn't check that video out, I will link it up in a card up top. So definitely hop back, check that one out, and come back to this one. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and make a new layer. This is where our inks are going to go. So I'm going to rename this one just so you guys can follow along easier at home. So we'll rename this one and call it inks. And then let's go ahead and rename this one too and call this sketch. So let's rename this one. And you can see, if you guys didn't watch the first video, I actually did 2 separate sketches for this. Started out here really rough, just kind of getting the shapes in here, the overall just kind of flow of the design, and then went back in, kind of cleaned everything up with this one. And this is going to be the sketch layer that we're going to use to ink today. So I'm going to go ahead and go up to my adjustments here, turn down the opacity. We just want to see it just barely here. It's going to help us kind of add our inks on top of there fairly easy. So I'm going to go back up to inks. Now, I've talked about before, if you guys are new to the channel, how important inking is. Really, it's kind of the fundamentals of starting out, getting everything set up right, especially in regards to line weight. So with line weight, the thicker the line is going to show the viewer where kind of the shadows are. Thinner lines are going to be where the light's coming in and where the highlights are. So for this one in particular, I think I'm going to go ahead and have the light source coming in from this top left-hand side. So you'll see up here on this side, everything's going to be a little bit thinner as far as line weights go, because that's where the light's coming in. And then as we move down here and over to the side, these are where everything's going to be thicker at. Like I said, number one, it kind of shows the viewer where the light source is coming in from. But once you go in to actually start adding highlights and shadows, you've kind of got some of the guesswork done for you. You know exactly based on your line weight where everything's going to be. So let's go ahead and jump in. I'm going to start up here in the left-hand corner, and we'll just start to kind of go around here. So you'll see here, even though I'm doing a thicker line down here, this up here is going to be, like I said, where the light source is coming in. And then, of course, as I come down and around, I want this a little bit thicker down here at the bottom. So you can see how I'm doing that. And then just kind of follow these around. One of the nice things with this brush that I'm using, you'll see, is the tapers on this are really, really cool. Gives you a really nice tapered effect here at the end. You really have to practice with this, though. I've talked about this before in some videos. Getting those tapers, it really is kind of the practice that you've got to do to know exactly how much pressure to add, when to let up your pressure as you go around, and then just kind of get the feel for it. So if you do get these brushes and you don't see the exact type of lines that I'm doing here, guarantee you everything's working fine. You just really kind of need to train your hand to do it. Also, as I'm going around here too, and I've talked about before with the first video, you'll see I'm not really moving my wrist. I'm using my whole arm. So you can't see clear up, but really up to my shoulder, clear down. I'm making these big swooping motions, and that's going to give you some really kind of nice fluid lines. Once you get in the habit of doing that, your lines are going to be a lot less shaky. They're going to be a lot more dynamic and just more clean. So I really urge you to kind of do that, to practice, to see exactly, you know, what type of lines you can get by using your entire arm. Instead of using some wrist actions, you're going to have a lot more kind of jitter lines when you're using just your wrist. So I really recommend trying that out and seeing what you can do with it. So we're going to erase in here to kind of give that reflection. And then we'll keep going down and around. You'll see this line here, this coming around, is a pretty big line. I've got it broken up though in between the nostrils here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to switch back over here to my brushes. I've also got the standard inker as a streamlined version. So this one, it kind of aids you as you drag along. It's going to kind of give you a little bit more leeway as far as the shakiness goes. These brushes, you can turn up streamline in brushes, but these two brushes are, even though they're both called standard inker, this brush with the streamline is not just this brush with the streamline turned on and maxed out all the way. I actually made adjustments to make this one feel like this one. A lot of times when you turn on streamline in Procreate, the brush responds a lot differently than what it does normally. So I really urge you to try that out and see the difference between them. It definitely works out to your benefit. I'm going to turn this one up just a little bit here. You'll see as I bring this down, I want this other side to be a little bit thicker over here on this side here. I'm going to try that one more time. There we go. And I've talked about before, feel free to do lots of undoing and erasing. That's one of the best parts of digital art is, you know, if you're doing this traditionally and you do a line with some ink, you're pretty much locked into it. You don't have that ability to undo anything. So feel free, if you are, you know, inking something like this, or even, you know, sketching or drawing or doing whatever, use that undo to your advantage. If you don't do the line right the first time, don't worry about it. Don't beat yourself up. Just keep going back and forth until you get a really just nice fluid line that connects exactly like you see it in your mind. And you'll see a lot of these too as I'm doing these. I'm not worrying about making sure that I'm exactly tracing over my sketch layer. I want to make sure that everything's kind of in the general area, but those sketch lines are more just kind of my suggestion of where things go. I don't have to kind of be bound by them. So once again, with that, just really urge you guys to kind of make it your own as you go back in with the sketch or the inking layer over top of the sketch layer. Don't worry about making sure everything lines up perfectly. Once you start to worry about that, that's when you're going to start seeing your lines become a little bit shaky, you know, not as fluid. It's not going to look as fun and as dynamic just because you're being a little bit too mechanical once it comes to that point. So just keep it loose, keep it kind of, like I said, from the shoulder coming down as you draw instead of just using the wrist, and you'll be able to come up with some really cool lines. So here you're going to see I'm going to go thick on this side and bring it up thinner around this front side. So this side's going to be where the shadows are. So you see this line's a lot thicker back there. The light source is coming in from here. So this line's going to be a little bit thinner on that side. Same thing here. This one's going to be a little bit thicker because it's sitting underneath that snout. So this one will bring it thicker here, but it's still going to be pretty thick all the way around just because you are going to have that shadow of the snout there. So some things like that are going to go a little bit against the grain as far as, you know, how things would be as far as left to right when the light source coming in, but kind of play it as it goes. Same thing here, even though this is coming in from the side with the light source, this is going to kind of be underneath all this. So it's still going to be a pretty thick line. I'm going to adjust this up just a little bit. There we go. And I always recommend too, once you start getting inside the body and you have like these overlapping areas here, this is where I try to use thinner lines inside. So I leave the thicker lines kind of for that outside area. And then once you get on the inside, you want to kind of use some thinner lines. Of course, you can still use line weights in here and, you know, make certain areas thicker than other ones, but overall you want the inside lines to be thinner as you go inside the body. Leave those thicker ones for the outline. So switching back to my standard inker, I had streamline on there. Pull up the size just a little bit. So want this to be a little bit thicker because once again it's got that kind of overlap, so there's going to be some shadow there. This one's going to be a little bit thinner here and then come up pretty thick here and around as it comes down and around there. So you can see the difference there in the line weight. I'm going to switch back to my streamline to get this really big tummy line around here. I find the streamlines work the best for these big swooping motions. So you might not be able to get that right, you know, with the non-streamline. You might have some shakes in there. So that's where I recommend using the streamline. Also here, you'll see I went a little bit too far with the line, got it connected to the tooth. I don't want that line to overlap. Number one, I don't want it going into the tooth, obviously, but I don't even want it hitting here on the outside. I want this to kind of taper in. So I don't want that connected. So I'm going to go back in and remove that. Here's another tidbit of information. If you've got a thick line like that and want to make it a taper, instead of worrying about getting the right taper as you ink, you can also go into the eraser and erase away some of that to give that nice taper as well. So got a couple of ways to do the tapers there. Like I said, with the tapers, it just takes practice. So if you can't get it right the first time, definitely keep going at it. Also with tapers and with the way these brushes are set up, these are set up to use the pressure sensitivity of the iPad and the Apple Pencil. So if you don't have an Apple Pencil, these aren't going to work the same way that they will with an Apple Pencil. Likewise, if you don't have an iPad that can use the Apple Pencil and you're just using, a basic stylus, getting those tapers and the pressure sensitivity not being there is really going to affect how those lines come out. So keep that in mind too. You'll see here just kind of thinner lines for these nails. Don't want those too thick because they're on the inside of the body there. Switch back to my standard. Take off that streamline now. And just kind of build up these lines as we go. Give that little kneecap there. Belly button. So you see for the kneecaps and the belly buttons, I like this. It's almost like a G or a 6 to give that look of the kneecap or the belly button. You can kind of use that for both. That's kind of my go-to when I do the kneecaps and the belly buttons. This one's going to be a pretty thick line here. You got that kind of crease there coming over. Pretty thick line here at the bottom. I think I'm going to switch back to streamline for this one. And same thing here, pretty thick line as it comes down and around. Taper it off there at the bottom. So looking good. I think I want to increase the line weight of this one here. It looks a little thin. That's the thing too with this. With digital, I really recommend you guys kind of zoom in and zoom out quite a bit. So zooming in allows you to get really tight, get some really nice line work. And then once you zoom out, you can kind of see, okay, does this line need to be thicker? Does this line need to be thinner? You can kind of adjust as you go back through. But getting in close like that really allows you to really dial in the sizes of those lines. So this one. And I guess I saw somebody say too that the hippos don't really have tails like this. So they're a little bit more short and stout and stubby. But that's one of the benefits, I guess, of cartooning and like this, especially if you watch the first video. I didn't use a reference photo for this. I just kind of remembered, okay, I think a hippo looks like this, and this is what I remembered the tail looking like. So the tail really doesn't look like this, but I think it works for this design. It kind of gives that cool, like, fluid, like, sweeping motion of this karate stance. So that's why I use that tail, even though I guess it's not really how the hippo tails look. So that was just some creative license, I guess, with that. But if you want to change it up and make yours look different, feel free to do so. Get these in here, and you'll see this kind of like head wrap bandana, just doing some really quick lines like that, kind of showing the bends and the creases of that fabric. Same thing here. We'll just kind of have some tapers in there and have this fabric look like it's creasing and bending across here. I always like to add a lot of, fun little overlaps like this. So I've got these kind of overlaps down here showing like the creases in the fat, and then the same overlaps here, just kind of more angled, kind of showing the creases in the fabric up here. Just makes it more interesting to look at, makes it a little bit more realistic, and just fun little details like that really add to a design. So this one down here is going to be a pretty thick line, and then the top we're going to make a little bit thinner. As this creases in, we'll kind of pull that there. Got one a little bit thinner there. Gotta get this ear back here. down here. This one's going to be pretty thick down here since it's kind of set off in the back and to the side there. And then we'll go ahead and turn off the sketch layer. So there's our inking layer. From here, if you want to add some little fun things, you can add some more kind of just, you know, lines like this around if you want to add to it, little dots to add some texture to the skin. You could do that as well. Do a few there. I'm going to add the elbow down here. Just little stuff like this to kind of add some extra little details and textures around. Never hurts, and kind of makes it more interesting to look at. You can do the same thing kind of in here if you want to add some like flowing lines in here. All right, so there we go. That is our inked hippo. Kind of do some more lines around here. So the next video that we're going to do is going to talk about coloring this in, and then it's also going to cover the highlights and shadows, how to add those, and how to use the lines that we've already done here to kind of help us decide where everything goes. All right, guys, that is it for today's video. As always, thank you for watching. I appreciate it. If you like today's video too, if you got some valuable information out of it, do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit the bell for notifications too, so you can get alerted when I post new videos. Like episode 3 in this series, we're going to talk about adding the highlights, the shadows after we add the colors to it. Basically taking what we started in episode 1 and 2, kind of finishing it up into a finalized design. So you don't want to miss out on that. So definitely subscribe and hit that bell so you can get that little alert when I post it. Also, I've got a group over on Facebook. If you guys haven't joined yet, definitely hop on over after this video and join. It's called Keep Creating, a Learn, Draw, Share art community. I will link it in the description below. It's a place for artists like you where you can share your artwork, meet new friends, give feedback, leave feedback. It's an awesome place to be. So definitely want you guys to join. So hop on over after the video and sign up. Also, if you're an artist that's looking to make money with your art, if you don't make any right now, if you do but want to increase that into something, want to do as a side hustle or possibly turn your passion into a full-time career, I started a podcast with artists like you in mind. It's called Make Money with Your Art. A super creative name for a podcast, I know, but that's what it's about. So I go over different ways that you can make money with your art. We talk about new topics every week. So I want you guys to definitely listen to that if you have any interest of turning your creative passion into something that you can make money with. It's on all the podcast networks. You got Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever Google's is. It's all there, so definitely look it up. Make money with your art. Check it out. Leave a review. Want you guys to kind of take that passion and be able to do something with it. So I'm here to help you guys out, and that's why I started it. As for me, I can be found online, bjdell.com, as well as on Instagram and Twitter at bjdell. So until next time, keep creating.